What's up, guys? This is Strange Productions here. Welcome back to another fantastic episode I have for you guys in store today. Now, we are in the middle of winter here in Baltimore Penn Station along the ACS 64, but our consist is not a typical consist today, and I'll explain to you guys in a minute once I get everything settled. So here's our ACS 64, and you will see that we have a couple of Phase 2 amphitheats and some view liners. For those of you who cannot tell already, we are operating the Southbound Silver Star to Washington, D.C. As you can see at the bottom, we are going to track number 25. This should take us about 35 minutes. We are a non-stop train, and I'm also going to explain to you a few things along the way. So we are a Type B train, and so we'll be operating at Type B speeds, and we are not stopping New Carrollton, which means I'll have to show you guys a running brake test. So without further ado, let's go. And 3, 2, 1, clearing the cab. It is a beautiful evening here on the Amtrak Northeast Corridor outside the DMV. As we have a clear signal through Charles Interlocking as we continue through all the way. Another clear. And now we're at track 3 of the Baltimore Potomac Tunnel, excuse me. So this first portal we are in is called John Street, and the center of it is at milepost 95.9, which is the tunnel we're in right now. We'll go through an opening, which there it is. And now we're in Pennsylvania Avenue portal. So this whole tunnel till we get to the next one is Pennsylvania Avenue. Nope. Trying to read something off my timetable here. And through the Baltimore Potomac tunnels, we'll have to ring the bell through the entire duration that we are in the B&P tunnel. And so, we shall. And we have this automatic block signal coming up, which is milepost 97 exactly. And through the Baltimore Potomac Tunnel, I don't know why I keep saying Baltimore, Pennsylvania, B&P Tunnel, let's say the Baltimore Potomac B&P Tunnel, is completely a 1% grade. Some spots you have 1.3, sometimes you have a 0.8 or a 0.9. So, we've exited the Pennsylvania Avenue portal, and now we are in the Gilmore Street portal. And then the next signal will be the first interlocking since we left Baltimore. And this is called Fulton interlocking. Basically, any switch that has crossovers is known as a interlocking, especially those who have control point signals. Control point signals meaning signals are controlled by a tower, a dispatch, or basically controlled by a human. Now, automatic block signal, which we just passed earlier, that's controlled automatically, and they are sensors are placed in the tracks to determine where a train is within a block. There's our clear signal at Fulton. Now, take note that some of these speed limits that you see down below, we will actually not follow them because those are meant for high-speed train sets like the Southern Express that have a tilting system inside the train, which means the train can actually tilt. We don't have that because we're regular amphitheaters. You may see the train tilt itself, but that's because we're on super elevated tracks. So there's no way we can tilt the way we want. So like this 45-mile-an-hour limits will actually turn, we'll be only going 40. And then the 55 will be going 50 miles an hour. And then the 110, we can actually go 110, but until we get to our curve restrictions. And so because we have a lot of snow on the ground, we're going to have to ease up on our throttle. This is West Baltimore, Mark Station, West Baltimore, Maryland. Got to throw there too much. Clear for 110. And so right at that first curve where it says 90, we're actually going to go 80. And that is the first curve north of what's called Frederick Road, which is a speed restriction. So again, the speed restriction, we're going to go down to 80. And then once we get past Frederick Road, we'll be at the first curve south of Frederick Road, which will be able to go no more than 100. Now, our speed limit will be 110. And then we'll have another speed restriction, we'll be down to 105, then 100, etc. So right now, this is the first curve north of Frederick Road, and so we're going to go no more than 80. And then you'll see a overhead bridge, which there it is. That is Frederick Road right there. So now we are at the first curve north of Frederick Road, and now we are on the first curve south of Frederick Road. And we'll be able to go 100 miles per hour. Sorry, 100 miles an hour. That milepost we just passed on the right was actually milepost 100. So between milepost 100 and Winans, we'll be able to go 110 miles per hour. So now we can go ahead and throttle up. But we'll be able to go only 110. Then right where you see that 120, that is the first curve south of milepost 101, and we'll be taking that at 105. Our dynamic brakes because we're starting to go downhill here. Now this train is only stopping at Washington because we are the Silver Star. we're going to begin slowing down. Here is Halethorpe, Maryland, Halethorpe Mark Station. And past that, you'll see another speed restriction of 120 miles per hour. So for us, we're going to go 100. Right now we are maintaining 99 miles an hour. Alright, as soon as we round this bridge here, we're going to slow down to 90 miles per hour because we have a speed restriction on track 3 between milepost 105 and Signal Bridge 1055/1054. We'll be going down to 90. This is all trains. And we are not stopping at BWI Airport or New Carrollton, so we will continue all the way. So there's milepost 105 we just passed. You saw that on the right side. And there's Signal Bridge 1055. We are actually going to maintain 90 miles per hour because on the other side of BWI Airport, which is milepost 106, the first curve south of milepost 106 is actually 90 as well, so we're just going to maintain 90 miles an hour. Alright, that was milepost 106. This is BWI Airport. Amtrak and Mark Station. Baltimore Washington International, or Baltimore Washington 3rd or Marshall International. So now we're at another 90 mile an hour curve. And once we get out of the curve, we can go 125 miles per hour. And then we'll encounter a few more curves with the speed restriction of 120 miles per hour and one curve of 115 before we get to Seabrook, Maryland, where we can only go 110 miles an hour. So without further ado, let's get to it. Now these are all automatic block signals, as you see, because they have the number boards. Another way you can tell that it's automatic block is some of these signs that are attached to the signals are actually indications of automatic blocks. Here comes our curve. This will be the first curve of milepost 110. So between milepost 110 and Grove interlocking, all curves are 120 miles per hour. are going decently fast, especially with the MP36 only allowed to go 90 miles an hour on the corridor. This is Grove Interlocking. This is one of 3 high-speed crossover interlockings. As you can see from track 1 to track 2 over to the left, you can definitely tell how long that crossover was and then how short these were. These short crossovers, you can actually go 45 miles per hour or limited speed. Those who are crossing over at 80 miles an hour can actually go what's called cab speed, which is 80 miles an hour as well as 60 miles per hour, depending on the track conditions and the signal aspects shown, or the signal rules that are applied. This is Odenton Mark Station, Odenton, Maryland. Ooh, that person was a little close. That was Odenton Mark Station, Odenton, Maryland. And now there's an extra track, as you can see all the way to the left. That is the Amtrak Maintenance Away Facility in Odenton, Maryland. So that's Odenton's MAL equipment yard. So all kinds of maintenance equipment. And that is a northbound regional following that mark. Poor thing. Looks like the yard's completely empty today, which is good, I think. Probably doing some winter repairs, I would assume. So all these curves between now mileposts 113 and 118 are all 120 miles per hour. So once we get to around Bowie State, Maryland, which Bowie State is at milepost 119.4, we'll have one restriction past that. That's at milepost 120. The first curve south will be 115 miles per hour, and then we can hit 125 miles per hour until we get to Seabrook, Maryland. Alright, we have this last curve, and that should be around milepost 118. So therefore, we will no longer have any restrictions until we get past Bowie. We'll have one that goes 115 miles an hour, as Bowie State's coming up literally in a mile and a half. Be quiet. Alright, so past the signal. This is Bowie State University, Bowie State, Maryland, Bowie, Maryland. Alright, watch it start beginning to slow down here for the speed restriction. There's another MARC train. Alright, so this is the last curve. Major curve, at least. We go 115 miles an hour. And now this is Bowie Interlocking, Bowie, Maryland. Now, there's a railroad museum here just to the left. It's probably not there. And then where the track actually wides off, that's the CSX Pope Creek subdivision. So, general CSX trains like coal trains, rock trains, or any locals that come from the CSX R4P subdivision or the CSX Capital subdivision on the Alexandria branch will go into Benning Yards in Washington, D.C., and then they will change directions or they'll change ends and then take trains north through here. And they'll go on track 1 and they'll go from Landover, Maryland, and they'll come here to Bowie, Maryland, and then jump on the Poke Creek subdivision. It's the only way to get there. So you'll see some CSX trains run through daytime, not always, but you'll see quite a few per week that need to go up and down the Northeast Corridor. And then you'll definitely see them around nighttime, and like I said, occasionally you'll see some during the day. Alright, we're going down a 1% grade. So about right here is when I can start seeing trains come south when I'm at Seabrook, Maryland, or when I used to go to Seabrook, Maryland every time I was rail fan. I was seeing right where that last Sigma post was. And here comes Seabrook, Maryland, in literally a mile. Then once we pass Seabrook, actually coming up to Seabrook, we're going to have to slow down to 110, because that is our speed restriction. So between milepost 125 and Landover, it will be 110 miles an hour. Landover will have a speed restriction of 100. That's for all trains. And then past that, we'll go 125 miles an hour. That was milepost 125, and now we'll be taking this curve at 110, and it will remain at 110 until we get to Landover. And then you'll see the CSX Landover subdivision break off and go down to Bending Yards in Washington, D.C. And we are coming up to another high-speed crossover here at Carroll Interlocking. They'll be flying by New Carrollton. And New Carrollton, as soon as we pass it, we actually have to do a running brake check. The reason is because when we pass New Carrollton, we have to ensure that the brakes are working. Because once we get to Union Station, we're going to have to slow down to 15 miles per hour. So, there's actually an incident back in 1953 where a Pennsylvania GG1 was carrying a consist, and the brakes failed. And so, okay, so this is Carroll Interlocking. So look from track 2 to track 3. You can tell that the crossover is a lot smoother than you saw from track 2 to track 1, because that's for 45 miles an hour. So that's generally for any equipment going from 2 to 1. And so what happened was the brakes failed when they got to Landover, when they were starting to slow down, and the brakes failed completely. And so the train ended up crashing into Union Station. Luckily, the engineer, fireman, and all personnel and passengers aboard were completely fine. No major injuries. I know the fireman had a few scratches. One of the conductors, I think, broke his knee. So now we're going to slow down to 100. Okay, so the brakes work. So we report to our conductor that running brake test complete, and so he'll relay back the information to me that he acknowledged that we had completed a running brake check. So the brakes work completely fine. So it is safe to go into Washington, D.C. Look at that, another marked train. So all trains that are proceeding southbound past New Carrollton, not stopping at all, through Landover, Maryland, and New Carrollton, must perform a running brake test before they get to Landover, which was the last interlocking you saw. And now those two tracks that were track 1 on Northeast Corridor will split off as they now become the CSX Landover subdivision and will go down to Bending Yards in Washington, D.C., while we are still sticking with the Orange Line Metro, and we just passed Chevrolet not long ago, or Landover, and now we're about to pass Chevrolet, excuse me, as we proceed southbound. So now we are clear to 125 miles an hour until we get to a section of track called the 95 stretch. And I'll explain to you guys more what that is once we get closer. Or at least once we cross the border into DC. This is Chevrolet Metro Station, Orange Line trains. does look kind of stormy out there, doesn't it? That was milepost 131. And so this signal box that's coming up to our right is actually the border of Maryland and Washington, D.C. This one right here to the right. And now, welcome to Washington, D.C. And now we're passing over the Anacostia River. Alright, so generally at this signal, it will start to display a slower signal, so either a cab speed or an approach limited. So, that's not right. But the cab signals will not pick that up yet. It's just letting us know that, hey, you're going to start slowing down the next signal. So usually they'll display cab speed and approach limited, and then the cab signals will override that. But at the next signal is where we'll need to do something about it. So we're actually going to slow down here to 95 miles per hour. I should have done that earlier, but I was not paying attention. So we'll go to suppression. Full service, maybe. That was northbound regional. So that was definitely my fault. Should pay more attention. So this one will generally display another approach limited, or this one will actually, it will display an approach limited. So now we're going to pretend we just saw that. And so we're going to go back into suppression mode. And the tracks that you just saw that was joining to our right is the CSX Capital subdivision. There's supposed to be signals there, but apparently Dovetail left them out. And to our right side is Amtrak's Ivy City Yard. It looks completely dead. Very scary sight. So we'll slow down here to 45 miles per hour and we'll check out our next signal. And so the CSX Capital subdivision will curve off to the right and will join the CSX Metropolitan subdivision and continue all the way. Alright, so generally that will be a slow clear because there's no green light on top. Because, or not green light, sorry, white light. The white lights will indicate medium speeds, limited speeds, or approach speeds. These are what's called B&O type signals. These were used back in the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad days. And you'll still see them today. Washington Terminal is full of them. And you'll see them more as we start coming in. There we go. So now our cab signals just nabbed us. So, get a reduction down. So now we have an approach. So now we're really going to slow down. And we're going to proceed, prepare to stop at the next signal. There we go. Next signal is showing another approach. So we're going to keep our eyes out here, and then we'll now maintain 15 miles per hour. This is J Bridge. This signal we just passed earlier was H, and the one before that was C. Those are different signal towers that used to be controlled individually, but they're now all controlled by that little tower you saw to the right, which that is K tower, and that's what these signals are. These signals are actually K tower. Turn on our dynamic brakes now. We are going down a pretty steep grade. So we go down to the basement. too close. And we are on track 25 of Washington Union Station, one of the longest platforms. We're going to turn off our dynamics and begin applying the brakes. So we're going to go all the way to the end of the platform. And we have made it. Welcome to Washington's Union Station. So we would decouple the locomotive here, or the motor. So we'll decouple our ACS-64 and put it away and get ready for its next assignment or wherever. And then a P-42 or any kind of diesel locomotive that is on standby will connect, and this train will proceed southbound. And since we're operating the Silver Star, it will go to Miami, Florida. Well, that's all I have for you guys today in this video. Sorry if my train operating skills was not as pleasing as my other ones. I will try harder in my next video. And hope you guys enjoyed taking a look at the basement for the first time in these videos. Until next time, this is Trains Productions. We're out of here.